Welcome to Power Lunch Live. I'm Rhett Power, your host. Good to be with you here on the 22nd of October. Amazing that we've gotten this far into the year. It's been a really strange time. It's good to be back with you here this week. The point of Power Lunch Live is to have today's thought leaders, best-selling authors, executives, CEOs, people who are doing amazing work in the world that we can all learn from. And we've got a great guest today, Peter Levitan, on the program. Look forward to this conversation. Been looking forward to it for a while. But we broadcast on LinkedIn Live. We broadcast on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and probably some other platforms that I'm unaware of and frankly don't care much about. But we do it anyway. But please do write. If you have questions for Peter today, please. We monitor those main platforms, and we take questions on those platforms. So please do interact with us. It's the best way for you to get the answers you need to get better at what you do. So as I said, I've got Peter Levitan on today. He's a pioneer in online newspaper industry, helps shape the newspaper industry for Conde Nast. He has been a longtime founder and serial entrepreneur, founded the Oregon-based ad agency. He bought the Oregon-based ad agency Citrus, and he sold that. He started in the ActiveBuddy, which raised $30 million in capital. He sold that to Microsoft. So he knows what he's talking about in terms of buying and selling businesses, running businesses, creating businesses, and creating compelling ideas and stories and using science to build brand awareness. He's got the book, he's the author of the book, The Levitan Pitch. Buy this book, win more pitches. We're going to talk about all of that today. He's worked with lots of huge, big companies, organizations. And so we want to pick his brain today. Peter, welcome to the program.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So 2020 has been a crazy year. How has it changed your views on life, business, and really the world? Is it really changed sort of how you think, what you think of, how you think of things?
I think the most important thing for me is it slowed down what had been a life that was essentially pre-planned, or at least there was a lot of planning in my life. I live in Mexico. I'm an American. I live in Mexico. My general plan in December, right? We'll all go backwards, was to do traveling a third of the year. I have a daughter in South America, and I have a global photography project I've been doing. I have a consulting business, which I can do from any place in the world as long as there's a telephone and an internet connection. They call it being a nomad. I'm not so nomad because I do have a home base, but I've done business from hotel rooms in London to Saigon. So I get that. And then, so that's travel and business. And then the third was sort of like, do whatever I feel like doing, which could be travel, could be business, could be anything. Travel, as we all know, is out. So a really big part of my life was travel, was shooting my series, which was really an excuse to go places. I mean, I just I would say to my wife, I'm going to India. And she goes, have a great time, honey. Right.
Just let me know when you're going to be back.
Let me know when you're back. And like a lot of people, I have global connections through things like LinkedIn. I've been in business for 30 plus years. So I know people who know people who know people. So if I show up in Delhi, I can go have dinner, that kind of thing.
Oh, that's nice to have. So it doesn't sound like it's changed your outlook and the way you think very much. You do what you do, right?
Well, we have margaritas here and tequila, mezcal. We can get bourbon and whiskey. So, I'm not overdoing it, but let's just say cocktail hour has become more of a staple of life, in these times.
Yeah, fair enough. I couldn't agree more. Do you think I was having a conversation the other day that I found fascinating, and you hit on it a little bit in some of the things that you talk about, and you've done this time and time again in terms of buying and selling businesses. But do you think we're in my conversation the other day? Somebody said that they thought this was sort of the golden age of buying and selling. That the baby boomers are selling their businesses. A lot of people have gone out of business. But do you think this is a real opportunity for business growth, maybe through acquisition, to look at buying businesses to sort of grow what you're doing?
Well, that's the other side, looking through the, telescope from the other side, which is a buyer side. I would say that there are probably opportunities out there. I say probably, I'll talk about that word in a second, opportunities out there that weren't out there before. And the reason is, yes, there are many people 50 plus who want to get out of whatever industry they're in. And I've done some work on this. I just wrote a white paper, how to sell your advertising agency. I'm going to rewrite it, how to sell your business, because the tenets in the document are the same.
Right.
I don't have to be specific to an industry. But, and here's the but, and I've talked to M&A experts about this. A lot of sellers are a little bit hesitant because they don't think they're going to get the price that they would like, right? Okay. And that's on that side. As a buyer, it's a little concerning to not be able to project the future. When is the pandemic over? What is going to happen to the industry that I am thinking about buying into or adding to my current business? So there's so much insecurity in respect to pricing and the future that I think it has put a little bit of a brake on the M&A world, or just generally the purchase side of the business. So I think people would like to sell. I think people would like to buy. But if we can't project 9 months out, it's very, very difficult. You don't know what you're buying,
Well, no, right. Fair enough. And you don't know what that customer list is going to look like after a few months, right? If I'm thinking about buying a business now, how do I leverage? Do I leverage? I mean, do you think there are deals now, or banks lending money, or how would it even work now? I mean, is there money out there for this?
Well, you can borrow money, people say for zero interest. It's not true, but you can borrow money for obviously very little, a very low interest rate. So that's a plus. I think there might be some questions on the part of a lender in respect to the things I just mentioned. What does the future look like? Do I believe the numbers and so forth? Where are the numbers going? But there is that money. And I have been, again, told by mergers and acquisition specialists that, well, we're down to 2 weeks now, where a few months ago they were thinking, well, if a Democrat gets into the White House, how are the tax laws going to change? So that impacted lenders. That's fine tuning for a lot of buyers and sellers, because one thing about buyers and sellers, they tend to be very locked into their industry. I've been, I don't know whether it's fortunate or not, able to buy and sell 3 businesses, which is, it's not a large number, but I had some experience. Most buyers and sellers are going to sell once or buy once. So they don't have that experience. But again, there's so many unknowns that I would be cautious. I know that there are sales happening. I see it. People tell me about it. But you need to be buying into a great brand. If you're a buyer, like, what is the brand? What is their marketing? What is their position in the marketplace? Are they a growth business? Did they get their act together a year plus ago in terms of controlling costs and so forth? There are a lot of elements to think about. But it is happening. And I would say, this might be a time to get a deal. I mean, certainly if you want to buy a restaurant in San Francisco, not that anyone in their right mind would do that, it's probably a good time to do it.
So you talk about how to craft and increase company value to accelerate a sale or a purchase. What do you mean by that? What's that equation, or what's that sauce, that secret sauce there for making yourself, attractive and actually being attractive as an acquisition?
Well, in business, I often use dating as a metaphor, because I can do everything from a blind date to the first date at the restaurant. You want to look your best, which means, in my mind, you have to start thinking about selling a year ahead or so. How does the business look? How does it look to the outside? How does it look to the market? What does your marketing look like? What does your brand look like? These are not difficult things to deal with, but you just have to pay attention to it. What are your financials like? Are your costs too high, and so forth? So looking attractive is everything from, frankly, looking attractive. What does your brand look like? To what do your financials look like? And what is your position in the market? And those can all be massaged ahead of ever putting the business up for sale. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of companies don't get that. I always recommend, find the brilliant accountant or the mergers and acquisition specialist if you can, because they'll help you understand what you have to do.
Yeah, put the sort of your package together that makes it look compelling.
Yeah.
So you talk about, I want to dig into your PR background and your agency background, because I think I'm interested in that and fascinated by it. And I think it's helpful. We hear a lot about storytelling, and we hear a lot about that now. You talk about using science and compelling ideas to build brand awareness. Can you talk about that a little bit and talk about what your thoughts and I mean, has COVID changed any of that, or are there some brands that you can point to that are doing it really well, using the pandemic and what's going on in society to really build brand awareness? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I'm not sure that I've never been a fan of using a cultural issue as a let's call it a jumping off point for marketing. There is a video floating around on LinkedIn, maybe you can search on it, on the sameness of brand advertising discussing the COVID problem. And I can't do it justice, but imagine a quick cut video of 20 TV commercials where all the companies are saying, we know how it feels today. We care about you. We love you. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And if you take the logos out, right, they all sound exactly the same. So right. I always caution people to try to sort of, it's not jumping on as a negative, but, to try to use something like this. All right. So that said, I am a proponent of something I call being unignorable. Can you make your marketing unignorable? And I always say, if you're not unignorable, the flip side is you're ignorable. And given, pick your number, 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 messages a day, you have to decide to stand out. So it's not just good enough to try to be distinctive in terms of your brand positioning. If you're a marketer, you have to stand out. And this is not easy. No. I could give you an example of that if you want. Actually, a crazy example.
I'd love it.
All right. A while back, I used a service called Cameo. Mm-hmm. Cameo, like cameos, and you can hire celebrities to do videos for you. So I hired a couple of guys. One was in Australia. I forget where the other gentleman was. The Australian does a great Trump impersonation. So I had Donald Trump do 2 videos for me saying I was the greatest advertising person in the world. And the other one was saying I have the best podcast. Very Donald Trump in the White House, looks like Donald, sounds like Donald, the whole crazy bit. I also had Mahatma Gandhi. I had come back from India and I had a fake Mahatma Gandhi say that, Peter, I'm not even going to try an Indian accent, but you get it. Peter is wonderful. Okay. Now, so I just actually put those up on my website yesterday because a friend of mine said, you had done those. Where are they? So I made them easy to see on my vlog. My point is I hired people for $80 for Donald Trump to make a commercial for me. Now, my caution here is, there are some people that don't like Donald Trump. So the point is more just, it's sort of, if you love Donald Trump, great. He endorses me. If you don't like Donald Trump, great. You're certainly going to pay attention. So that's my personal example of trying to be unignorable. But I can tell you in today's world, if you're a marketer, if you're a business, man, it's hard to make a dent. I mean, it's really hard to make a dent.
How do you think, I work with a lot of small and medium-sized companies, growing young entrepreneurs, people who are just starting their new companies. How does a new company like that become unignorable? I mean, but you see a lot of wacky stuff, right? But is it, yeah. I mean, is it, do you have to go that far? Do you have to go far out to really get unignorable?
No. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday at an agency in London called London Advertising, and they do marketing for the hotel chain Mandarin Oriental. Mm-hmm. And I've known these London guys for Yeah, it's a great brand. And so he was talking to me yesterday about how when they got the brand 25 years ago, they've been working on that a long time. They were looking at competitive marketing for hotels, and hotels show hotel pools, the bar, the lobby, the experience of pulling up in the car, the room. It's all looks the same. So they realized in talking to the hotel that many famous people stay at Mandarin Oriental hotels. Plus, the logo is a fan, F-A-N. And they created a campaign of fans who stay at the hotel. And the number's astounding. Like they've had over 100 ads with famous people who just say, "I'm a fan." Okay, this is a very famous campaign.
Yeah.
And research in global advertising research says it's one of the most memorable campaigns. Now, it's memorable for a few reasons. It doesn't do what everybody else does, which is show you the hotel room. It's consistent. They've been doing the same thing over and over. Consistency is very important, because we're all used to like jumping all over the place, right? And they have a very strong message, which is people who have taste stay here. And if you're smart enough to figure out what hotel to stay in, if people with taste stay somewhere nice, you got to figure they have a nice pool in a restaurant. You don't have to tell me that. So those are a couple of examples. Is it easy to do? No. Even ad agencies don't get it right. Right.
No, that's true. And that's why I asked, because I think it's, people think that you've got to kind of go this crazy, you got to go far out. And I think sometimes you're right, it's consistency, but it's also looking at what the market's doing, what everybody else is doing, and maybe just doing something a little different,
Sure.
But you don't have to go far out.
No, I don't think you don't have to get, there's another example I use, the Geico advertising for Geico Insurance. They're the first insurance company to go weird. You're right. Their name is Geico, so they got a Geico to be their spokesperson. I mean, when have you ever seen a lizard be the spokesperson for an insurance company?
Right.
And their commercials are fantastically entertaining, and I think they've grown the brand. But those are rare examples.
Yeah. No, but they've been consistent with it, and they've stuck with their themes of sort of off the wall and kind of fun. And I think a lot of people have tried to copy that.
The whole industry. I think if you look at certainly car insurance advertising right now, it's all a bit nuts. And people tend to copy success, and Geico's been successful. But weird for the sake of weird. If it's on brand and it makes sense and it's not too over the top, sure, give it a shot. What the hell, give it a shot. Marketing is fun.
The one that stands out to me is the Dollar Shave Club when he started doing those videos and stuff. I thought that was brilliant. Yeah, that was really brilliant. So how do you, in terms of, I guess a follow-up question to that is, how do you, as a small, medium enterprise or a business now, even as an entrepreneur, how do you craft a marketing strategy that, because I think a lot of people think, well, you got to go social, where are people spending their money effectively today? I mean, for you, if you're a startup, to me, it's a whole lot more complicated than it used to be. And understanding, social media and where you place your ad dollars there and how that just seems really complicated if you're just starting out. Or even if you've been in business for a while.
There's absolutely no question. I started in business, radio, television, print, and outdoor. That was it. Right? Okay. That was, and that's when we made advertising agencies made lots of money. It was a very successful business. It's not as successful or lucrative as it used to be because the choices are exponential now. I think there's a lot, maybe too much information out there, but I always point marketers to something like YouTube. And I said, there's almost nothing you can't learn on YouTube. So find the best listened to or watched guy on YouTube about Instagram. Find those leaders in the social media marketing world that have shows where they tell you what to do. And I will say that it can be overwhelming. And a lot of it is BS because, of course, they're selling their own pitch. So you have to, you just have to be careful. But businesses have been built on Instagram, have been built on Facebook. It is all at the moment pay to play. These are not inexpensive. I think they can be efficient, but you have to pay to play. You used to go on Instagram, do some stuff, and you got an audience. Now the algorithms are pushing people away from natural content and are starting to reward people that are paying Instagram money. I mean, Facebook owns Instagram. They are not in business to just make everybody a special person. They're in business to make money.
Yeah.
So what would I do? They're a great example. I think TikTok at the moment is very interesting. You may not be able to sell on TikTok, but what you can do is point people from TikTok to your business. And that's similar to other platforms. The funny thing about TikTok is millions of people used it, but when the Trump administration got on their case, many more millions of people started. That's the unintended consequence. Yeah, I'm not saying use TikTok, but there are best practices for each platform, and there are experts. I saw an agency the other day that is doing fantastic work and is growing incredibly fast, and their whole business is helping people that have products on Amazon sell more products. That's their business.
Niche, very specialized.
Very specialized. Yes.
So if I'm an entrepreneur and I know I need to hire, I remember coming to this point when I had the toy business, and I knew I needed to hire someone to help me think through the strategy. What questions, if I'm hiring an agency, what questions do I need to be asking myself about? Is this the right agency?
Right.
How do I know I'm getting results?
Case histories help. Smart agencies will have one or more cases available to you, and they'll be very clear. They'll say, this was the objective of the client. This is what we did, and here are the results. I would say you want to look for results because otherwise it becomes very, very subjective. So that's one. I think there's a great deal of importance to be placed on people having chemistry. Are you thinking the same? There's also, it's a fantastic thing when an agency is a specialist in your category. And there were toy agencies. I'm not sure if they're around much these days, but there were experts. I used to have an office.
That's how we ended up going with a specific niche. Yeah.
I mean, you have to be a little careful about that. I once got a call from one of the largest hospital groups in the United States, and it was from their HR department. And they said, would you like to talk to us about our human resources marketing? And I said, well, we have hospitals as clients, but we've never done that. She said, that's exactly why I want to talk to you. Because all the HR companies have the same solutions. Interesting. And we actually won the business because we did it differently. So I wish it was an easy way to tell you how to pick an agency, but I look at them, look at what they look like in their marketing. I think that's really critical. If they're good marketers, that means they should be good for you. And you have to decide what you want. Do you want a data analysis firm that's going to get in the numbers? Do you want a search engine marketing specialist? Do you want a specialist in your category that, I make widgets. I need a guy that's done a lot of widget work.
Right.
Believe me, there are people called search consultants who make a good living matching major brands to agencies. It is not an easy proposition. You just got to feel good and look at their track record.
And when you say results, when you talked about asking for results, is that, do I measure it in sales? Do I measure it in how many people come to my website? What kind of metrics should I be, I guess, not judging is not the right question, but what's the criteria? What am I trying to measure, I guess?
Sales.
Okay. That's what I thought.
I get thousands of people a year going to my website. They find me. I've written, let's pick a number, 800 blog posts about sales. I then look at how many leads I get, and of the leads I get, how many are high quality leads, right? And then I have to ask myself, then I talk to the high quality leads, and I look at my closes. That's the only way I can decide if I'm successful. I mean, I really don't want to be on an ego trip. It's I have been in my life on many ego trips, so I love it. But 1,000 people bought my book, isn't that great? 10,000 people bought the book, great. But if I only wrote the business books to get calls from qualified clients,
right?
I go to a cocktail party and somebody says, "Hey, what have you done in your life?" Yeah, I wrote a couple of books. Great, good for you. Okay. That doesn't pay the rent, as they say.
No, it does not by any means.
Right.
So, okay, that's interesting. And what's the mix you think? If I'm again going back to this scenario of entrepreneur, what is my mix of between social and sort of traditional media? What do you think that is today, or is it really? That's a hard question. That's not unfair. It's an unfair question, probably. But what should I think about, you think?
Well, it's the $1 million question. If somebody could tell you what the exact right mix was, that would be great. Let me go to the end. One of the ways to figure that out is to look at your results by platform, right? So that's that. But to go to the beginning, the first thing I tell all my clients is you have to be where people are looking for you. So if you're selling widgets in Chicago, you have to make sure that if someone is searching on a widget manufacturer in the Midwest, that you show up. So what lists are there? What lists can you buy into? Where should you advertise? How do you get on the front page of Google, which is not easy. There's not even that many spaces anymore on the front page of Google. But if you're not where people are going to look for you, you've got a problem. And social media can solve that too. If you're harder and harder every year, much more difficult today than 10 years ago. But thought leadership often will rise up in Google and people will find you. In the middle, again, going back to my friends in London, they just ran very crazy people. They ran a campaign for themselves. I mean, most advertising agencies don't do advertising for themselves, which, that's a whole separate hour conversation. Why does that happen?
Right.
And these guys bought television and outdoor. And they have dramatically increased their awareness in London. One of their issues is most of their work is international. So their awareness in the UK was not as high as it should be. They have a great name. They're called London Advertising. But because they use traditional advertising, they caught the attention of a lot of advertisers. There's so much clutter online that isn't works. People still get in the car and listen to the radio.
Yeah. And they still watch TV 4 hours a night. So.
Right. And you can't, let's face it. One thing about outdoor never got hammered by the move to digital, because you can't miss a big board on the highway. It should be done right, and many do it wrong. But the bottom line is, if you do a board, it works. The best example to me is always Sunset Strip in LA, where all the movies are announced.
Yeah.
You don't miss it. I mean, it's in your face. I've often said to clients, things like the equivalent of put a guy on the street with a sandwich board, right? Do chalk on the sidewalk. I had a wine client once, and I recommended that they draw, these guys that draw on the, use chalk on the sidewalk with color, and they can create a 3D image on the sidewalk. I said, have them in front of the liquor stores you branded. It was a wine company. Have it look like you're going down into the wine cellar. Again, that's unignorable. It's in your face. It's cheap.
Right. And No, I love that. I think that's brilliant. And I want to switch over. We've got a question from Tony Dante. Hey, Tony, thank you for joining us today. Peter, do you feel the perfect storm of COVID, economics, and stoppage of skill acquisition is going to have midterm impact 5-10 years out, or is it a forever game changer?
Oh, I think there's a lot of game change here. The word that pundits are using is that COVID's an accelerator. So if you think about the number of people who probably didn't shop online much last year, but are now shopping online today, just use that as one example.
Mm-hmm.
Another, and hopefully I'm answering the question because it's a good question. Another example is education. As a parent who put 2 kids through private college, and I don't own a Ferrari because of that, or maybe 2 Ferraris. College education is going to be radically changed. It is very inefficient. Its inflation costs were higher than the national average for everything. And another example is healthcare. I mean, why do I have to go to a doctor's office, sit in the waiting room, go through that whole process to have the 10-minute conversation, which I might be able to do, I'm not suggesting for everybody, might be able to do online. Doctor, my ear hurts. We know that I knew a radiologist in Montana who his only job was being sent x-rays from around the world. And he would sit for 2 hours staring at his computer in the morning.
Yeah. And
so I would say, yes, I view COVID as an accelerant for certain kinds of businesses. It will certainly change the restaurant industry. There will be more takeout. I mean, I could go down the list. And I don't think it's hard for most of us to really, kind of understand what's going on here. Things will change. There is no question. It will not look the same, and it will unfortunately take a while to come back.
Yeah, no, I think it's changed. The conference and speaking business has changed. Yeah. It's going to change all of that. I mean,
why? One of my favorite examples. Why did I go from New York to LA for a 5-hour business meeting? Why did I do that?
Right. Absolutely. When we've acclimated ourselves to doing just what we're doing, talking just like this, and having an interaction just like this, and thank you, Tony, for the question. For you, what are you really excited about, and what scares you about what's going on right now?
Well, I just talk personally. I decided to write another book, so I've been trying to write 1,000 words a day, and COVID gives me the time to do that. So I would recommend to people, since we do have more time, try to figure out what to do with it. Look, this is crazy. I mean, I don't know anybody that isn't anxious, have some form of anxiety, and it's not easy to do this, but channel it. And again, I'm going to be very personal here. I have a friend that runs an African-American agency, and we've talked about why are there not more African-American teenagers and wanting to go into other lots of kinds of businesses. And he suggested that they're just not aware of some of the options. I mean, that's just a function of the culture in the United States. So I've been starting to think about and talk to people about how could I create a mentoring program for entrepreneurs, black and white, who talk to teenage kids. Now, my biggest problem is I don't know how to talk to a teenage person of color. It's just not in my wheelhouse. I know how to think about it and plan for it. So look, everybody's different. I'm just kind of forcing myself to do things out of my box. And that's me. And I mean, and not everybody's like that. And I'm not even going to suggest it's possible. I would even say to people, look, if you get stuck right now, find a life coach. Really good time to have a life coach.
Okay. That's not a bad advice. Not bad advice at all. What are you excited about besides that? Are you excited about anything else? Any other opportunities business-wise that you think that you see kind of on the horizon?
I'll be frank. I think it's hard to get excited at the moment.
Okay.
If you read maybe the thing to get excited about is figuring out how not to read the news. Read fiction.
Yeah.
We all know this, right? And I talk to people all the time. I'm turning the news off. Well, it's so pervasive, and it's in your face. It's hard to do that. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough, good enough to answer these questions with great universal clarity. But I think it is very much look into yourself these days and try to figure it out, or don't worry about it. just hang out, watch Netflix. I mean, I think this is going to pass, and we just got to spend some time getting through it. If you're a business, I know that that's a completely, that is not a relevant statement on my part. So I believe in sales pressure, and I believe in having a clear objective and knowing what your target market is and knowing what their interests are, what their pain points are, and addressing those. I'll take this back to business, because business people can't just say, I'm just going to watch Netflix all day.
You think it's a time to think about blowing up your business and reimagining it in a whole new way, so that you can work from home, so your whole team can work from home? I mean, is this the time to really rethink everything in that way?
Yeah, I won't hold up a blank sheet of paper, but I think it's a good time to hold up a blank sheet of paper to yourself and say, let me reimagine. Again, it's best for me to talk about myself. When I sold my advertising agency, I was asked by that industry to help agencies with their business development. The fact is, for the 30 years before that, I helped General Mills and Johnson & Johnson and Northwest Airlines, and I can go down the list. So I know how to sell, I know how to do marketing for big companies. I've been thinking, because again, I wrote this book about how to sell your agency, and I have people say to me, well, I read it, but it's telling me how to sell my widget company. So I wonder sometime if I should just expand something called my addressable market. I mean, there are a heck of a lot more manufacturing and service businesses than there are advertising agencies.
Right.
So I'm rethinking a little bit. I will say it. I'm old enough to be scared of one word, and I think I can say it in broadcast. It's a tough one, but when something feels like work, too much like work, I get a little freaked out. There's a balance. I don't mind work, but work/fun is my goal.
I hear you. Yeah, I think a lot of people are. I think it is a good time to rethink how we've been doing things. I think a lot of people have been forced to do that, but at the same time, I'm working on a project in North Carolina right now, and you mentioned telemedicine and things, and this has really forced and pushed that technology a lot faster than they were moving. And it's forced them to do, but one of the side effects of that is that people that were reluctant to go to a doctor or see a doctor or talk to a doctor are now doing it. So it may have the unintended effect of having a good impact on our health, right? It might even help address some of the health equity questions that are out there. So I think I think this is really interesting times, I guess is the point. And I think you're right. It is time maybe to take a blank piece of paper and reimagine what we're doing and how we're doing it. Because I think working from home and remote work is here to stay, even more so than it was before. I mean, I think this has pushed that whole question and idea way ahead of where we were.
Yes. Well, and there's complication. I spent the morning studying, I'll go backwards. I wrote a book called The Levitan Pitch. Buy this book, win more pitches. And it's a fairly decent selling book in the world of advertising about how do you do a presentation. And it's a fat book with interviews and so forth. Well, I've had people say to me, okay, great, Peter, that's wonderful. And I know how to present in a conference room, but I'm not in a conference room anymore. What do I do? So I spent this morning studying and trying to understand, how do you build a great sales program for, let's just say, Zoom, right? And there's everything from the basics, good lighting, and like you and I are well lit, and we're on, where we have a decent background, and you have a professional background. I'm in an art studio. We all, but there are no distractions. I don't have cats and babies running around. My microphone works. My video works. Okay, fine. Those are the basics. But the problem is, we have to understand that in a 20, 30-minute conversation, generally, if it's a pitch, people's minds are going to wander. Your potential client is going to look at email. There are a lot of problems. It's again, I've been getting into it, listening and reading about some perspectives from neuroscientists. And I'll just give you one example. The first 2 minutes are critical, and the last 2 minutes are critical. And I'll even state the obvious. Too many words on a PowerPoint is a bad idea. In 2019, it's a really bad thing to do in 2020 on Zoom. Forget it. You know,
done. You're done.
Yeah, you're done. So, yeah, I can't even remember how I got into that, but that's how I spent my morning, reading neuroscientists talking about, guys that are readable. I'm not into the cranial world, talking about how people respond to sales conversation on Zoom. So that's coming. I'm going to actually probably try to get this out in a couple of weeks.
That'd be really helpful. I think that's one of the things, that's one of the things you think about having to rethink. I mean, how do you make that personal connection via Zoom? Because
Right.
I believe selling is a personal, it's how people feel about you more than anything else. And so, yeah, how do you do that? That's great. That's
and there are, look, it's just like a lot of things. You just have to be conscious. I'm going to ask you a really crazy question now. Guests don't normally ask.
That's all right. Throw it at me.
How long do you want me on this podcast? Because I'm looking at, talk about being a schmuck on Zoom or on LinkedIn Live or Facebook Live. Can you say schmuck? Yes.
Yeah, you can.
I have 10% of my battery left. I'm like stupid enough not to have brought my.
No worries.
Okay.
That was my last question. So.
All right. Okay. Well, let's use that as a teachable moment. Normally I totally have my act together, but I've been sitting here watching, the bar, we've all been there, right? Right. Okay. All right. That'll be one of my last points, is just make sure you have your act together.
Well, I do appreciate it. I do appreciate you being on today. Thank you for your time. And this is Power Lunch Live. We appreciate your time as well, spending it with us. And you can find out the upcoming schedule at powerlunch.live, our website. Go visit, interact with us, ask us questions, recommend guests if you've got somebody you think we should talk to. And we'll see you tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. Until then, have a great day. And Peter, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
All right.